Hello. Welcome back to the David Watson podcast. Today, I spoke with Greg, and I just love it when conversations take care of themselves. And in this episode, conversation just took care of itself. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hello. Welcome to the David Watson podcast. I hope your heating is on.
It's on here in Vermont. It's minus 25 right now in Vermont, Celsius.
Celsius. So, is it snowing as well? I mean, have you had a load of snow as well? Or was it just.
We've had a couple of inches, not much. It's
No,
just cold. It's
just,
just
yeah.
cold.
Yeah, I don't suppose there's much you can do about that, though, is there? Other than sort of stay inside, keep the heating on, and hope for the best.
And do a podcast. That's
Yeah,
what you do. And yeah, that's what.
yeah, yeah. Hey, I'd say this to all my guests: if you've got nothing better to do, come and talk to me. I need the help.
I'm glad to be here and help.
Um, one of the things when I first came across you and was able to invite you on the podcast, I think I said in my introduction, you just sound like you've done so many things. I'd just like you on. Um, but and then since then, when I reached out to you on email just to double check, hey, are we all good? You're like, oh yeah, I am. And by the way, since we last connected, I'm writing some books. So let's start with the books. What is the next two projects in the pipeline?
Actually, I have four projects in the pipeline. Part of my difficulty in life is that I'm really good at a lot of things. And so I'm really good at starting things and getting things rolling. And then because I'm good at a lot of things, I'm easily bored and I move on to, I feel this pressure to move on. So yeah, some people think, wow, it's really great that you've published 20 books. And I'm like, oh yeah, but there's another 10 that are still in the pipeline that I'm working on. Um, I'm working on the two of the books that I'm working on right now that are right in the forefront of my mind. One is on collaboration in relationships
Mhm.
and how relationships can move better along in terms of communication and problem solving and future engagement by collaborating versus what a lot of people do is negotiating, or
Yeah,
they get to a point and they draw a line, which is like an ultimatum, or they just do whatever the hell they want to do, which is like a fait accompli. And then they're wondering why there's problems in their relationship. And then the second one that I'm working on is it's my third book on grieving. And I've written two books after my husband died in 2019. And so this is 5 years later and falling in love again after you've
mm,
lost your spouse
yeah,
and the trials and tribulations with that. Both are meaningful to me right now because I'm in a new relationship, and he's a great guy. We're connected, and there's bumps along the way. And so I'm one of the things I often do is I start writing,
yeah.
about my life, and then that spills into other things because I'm like, oh, I don't see a resource on this. I need this piece. And where's this book about collaboration? Where's this book about falling in love again? And I can't find it. And I'm like, I'm writing it.
Sounds as good as any. Yeah. Just- but grief is one of those strange things because you and I are both in the coaching industry as well. And when people talk to me about grief, one of the things that I notice that's a common factor is people seem to try and apply a timeline to it.
Yes, that's ridiculous. It is
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
like you,
Um,
you were saying about you sadly lost your husband, and it's like, how do you apply a timeline to somebody who, in theory, you agree to spend the rest of your life with?
right,
So, you
right.
know, but he's passed now, and next Wednesday in the afternoon, that's going to be the last time I think about it. It's like, I don't know, I was
Maybe,
good, you know, I
maybe.
yeah, but you know what I mean, don't you? Because there's this thing
Yeah,
that when you marry somebody, in principle, the intention is you take your vows that this is the path I walk until the day I die.
absolutely. Right.
So when you then lose that person, there's a deep part of your subconscious that's like, no, no, we didn't plan for this.
Exactly, exactly. And we live in a world that doesn't like to deal with dark stuff, doesn't like to deal with difficult stuff. Doesn't, we live in a world where your stereo breaks down, your VCR, well, we don't have VCRs anymore. Your TV breaks down. You don't repair it anymore.
No.
You go get a new TV. We
Yeah.
live in a world of avoiding those things, and it's the same thing with grief. People, um, uh, this guy that I'm going out with, he had some losses that in his family in the last few months. And I said to him, the best thing you can do to support those people that lost somebody is set your calendar, because you're going to forget, set your calendar 3 months from now to call them and check in on them, because everybody else is going to forget and move on. And they're still going to be feeling grief 3 months, 3 years, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
How, like, think of somebody who loses a child.
Yeah.
How could you ever get over that? Ever, ever. It's ridiculous to assume that there's a timeline.
Because one of the things I don't remember where I learned this, but I discovered its importance just by putting it into practice. And when you know that somebody might be in trouble, even if it's 6 months down the line, because grieving, whatever, just send them a message, just send them a text message. And somebody said, like, you'll never know what to say because there isn't anything to say. So just say, hey, I'm thinking about, you were in my thoughts. I was thinking about you. How's things? I hope you're well. It's a few lines. That,
Just yes, yes. And there actually is a thing that you can say to them.
yeah,
If that person is grieving, the best, and this is true for just about any emotion. Someone's grieving, all you have to say to them is these three words. How's your grief?
yeah,
If someone's depressed, all you have to do to them is say, how's your depression? And asking somebody that question is there. I can tell you this. I guarantee the reason that you're probably not wanting to ask that question is because you're afraid they're going to vomit all over you and
yeah,
cry
exactly.
and
Yeah,
all this agita. If you ask that question, they will not do that. I guarantee. They will say, they will talk about themselves almost in the third person as a step back.
mm,
Um, and that reflection helps them see that this emotion, whether it's grief or depression or anxiety, is like this and not like this, where
yeah,
they're sinking. Really, and even if they don't answer you, I have a friend of mine, a colleague, who's a chiropractor, and he sent me a message, and at the very end of the message, he said, "How's your grief?" And I didn't respond to him because I was busy with other things. But that question created a space in my life for, I'm like, how is my grief? Oh, it's a little bit this way today. And I saw him a couple weeks ago and I said to him, Brian, I said, your asking that question had a profound impact on me, even though I did not respond. So keep asking that question to the people you care about, because it will have a profound impact on them, whether or not they respond to you or not.
and this is the thing is because what I find is when people are suffering, there's a shadow of isolation they feel they're stuck in. And by somebody just saying, hey, how's things? How are you doing? Or just I was thinking of you, so I thought just check in. You know? It it can snap them out of the loneliness. They're not suddenly because we don't like to burden people when we're the worst company that we can be. So you kind of start to wallow in that, and you take on much more about it than exists. Just because you've had a bad afternoon doesn't mean you're bad company for the day. It just and most people are fairly understanding. And it's just when somebody reaches out and says, "Hey," it's a kind of subconscious way of saying, "I'm missing you." And that feels nice when
Absolutely.
somebody tells you that.
It does. It does because we thrive on human connection
Yeah,
and we thrive on belonging and being social. And in this isolated world where, most of our pieces come through this device right
yeah,
here that we look at to see, are we getting thumbs up or are we getting thumbs down or are we getting frowny faces or smiley faces? That's useless for us as social beings. We need so much more than that. And in the recent months since kind of falling in love again, what I discovered is, it's not just the dark sides and the suffering that can get us in trouble. It's the grasping and the wanting the good things
yeah,
that get us in trouble. And that's what happened to me in falling in love again because there's this sense of having lost somebody. I was with my husband for 31 years,
yes,
and um, and hold on, I have to yell at my dogs because they're now wrestling right in front of me. Go lay down. Hey, Groot, go lay down. I have two dogs. One's name is Groot, and one's name is Rocket out of Guardians of the
yeah,
Galaxy.
perfect.
And they are both at the same. They are almost just like the characters. Groot is a big black lab, big doofy dumb, and Rocket's a Jack Russell Terrier, small, just like that raccoon,
Yeah,
major attitude. Um,
that's
and
a
so,
perfect company for each other.
yes, yes. So what happened to me in the last 6 months is I I'm now in love with this guy. Wasn't expecting to get in love with this guy. Caught me totally by surprise because I've kind of kept people at an arm's length away. And dating apps support that kind of baloney. Uh, and then I started having this like I couldn't figure out what the feeling is. I had to like Google, went to Chat GPT. I'm like, what is this feeling that I'm having? And the best describer of it is ominous foreboding, waiting
Ominous,
for the ominous foreboding.
ominous
Yeah,
foreboding.
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I've already had this loss,
Yeah,
and now I'm exposed again, and I wasn't thinking it was going to happen again, but this feeling of like almost panic.
yeah,
Um, And it turns out that's really common for people after you've lost somebody. And then it's like you lost a kid and now you have another kid and you have this feeling that it's just heavy, like the shit's going to hit this fan again. Right.
yeah. No, it does make sense because it's people have that if they've been in a toxic relationship and they kind of come out of it and discover they don't know who they are and they've lost themselves. And then just when things are picking up, and it's because you kind of come out of the other side of recovery. You're just opening up, and you don't always realize you're opening up. And then you start to notice people, and probably for the first time, you start noticing that people are noticing you. And like you say, you then suddenly you're like, what's this about? I don't do this. And last time I did this, it sucked.
Right. Well, last time I did this, it was great. And then boom, suddenly it sucked.
But that's the thing, isn't
Right.
it? You said you were with your husband for 31 years. Okay, so
Yep.
I'm going to make an assumption that it was a good 31 years. So
It
it's a
was a
long
great
time.
3 years.
Yeah, right. The bit that fucked you up, for want of a better term, was the last bit when it sucked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't think,
And for those of you who are listening, I just want to just make it clear. It wasn't always an easy 31 years.
yeah,
It was a good 31 years. I don't want to say 21. I don't know why. I
we
was
all
a
want to
good
be
31
21 again.
years. I would love to be 21 again. Oh my gosh. Uh, but One of the things and this is a piece that I really admire about the guy that I'm going out with now. I said to him, I said, we're going to be married. And he's like, why? And I said, because you have the quality that I'm looking for in a spouse. He's
Yeah,
like, well, I don't know. What does that mean? Do we play chess together? Is it that we, like cribbage? Do we like to run? I'm like, you're totally missing it. It's not about the surface interests. The piece that he has is commitment.
yeah,
And commitment, for those of you who are listening, is much more important than love. You will fall in and out of love for the person that you're with. If you're with them for more than 15 years, you're going to fall out of love with them and you're going to have to fall back in love with them. I guarantee it. There's going to be rough spots. The thing that sustains the relationship is commitment and not giving up and continuously working things out.
yeah.
Much, much more important than anything else,
I
right?
I had a similar conversation at the weekend. I was fortunate in December. Friend's wife reached out to me and was just like, "Hey, is that David who went to college with my husband Lewis?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah. Hi, how's it going?" Because I went to their wedding, but we worked out. I think I haven't seen them for like 27 years or 29 years or something. And it was pre-internet. We just kind of lost touch over the years. And he's had 4 kids and stuff. And she was like, "Yeah, Lewis still talks about it. Any chance, would you fancy coming up sometime for the weekend?" Like, yeah. So I turned up last weekend. He didn't know I was coming, only his wife did. So, like, bearing in mind, he hasn't seen me for the best part of nearly 30 years. And he was just like, oh, wow. And a fantastic weekend. You know what I mean? The two of us never shut up. And it was just like we were still at college together. just
Wow.
constant, blah, 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 just back and forth, never like taking a breath to talk. One of the things that came up because him and his wife have been together for 30 years, I think it was, right? And still as committed to each other today as they were at the beginning, sort of thing. And I'm single. I had a few relationships, and obviously, because you have to catch up with over 30 years. And just like I said, ultimately, I said, when I look at it, I said, the difference between the two of us is I just never met anybody that actually had my back. Do you know what I mean? It's just that every relationship I got into, that always at some point ended up being an ulterior motive where we went in different directions. I said, when I look at you two, you both seem to have been walking side by side. And that was it. It was just that simple. Everything they said, every decision they ever made was always about what's best for the marriage, what's the best for the family. No, and it was never about them. The very
Right.
fact his wife reached out to me because they still spoke about me, and I like, and well, I never had somebody like that, and it just dawned on me. Oh right, yeah, I just never met that person that was like that,
Right.
and it's
Right.
simple, really simple.
And that's about commitment.
Exactly, it's just
It's
commitment.
Brian, and collaboration, right?
Yeah,
That's they're not talking about my needs versus your needs. That's negotiation.
yeah,
They're talking about our needs, which is
yeah,
collaboration.
yeah, and
I said
that's
to,
their life. Has been
yeah,
their 30 odd years. Is this just like, what do we need? What's in it for, how do we make this work for each other? And I would say from day one that's they just like, well, everything we do is together. It's not a competition. When we're not competing with each other. It's just like, no. What can I do that helps your day be better?
right.
And when two people are doing that, you just end up like, you know, and the amount of things we discussed where they'd done things together because they were just supporting the other person. And then when the other person realized it's not really their thing, well, why don't we try that thing you were into? Not, oh, you're being
Because all
selfish
that
because you
stuff's
don't
on
like,
the surface.
yeah. And it was just actually, and when and like, if I want to like break it down a bit more, everything seemed to be about them figuring out how they did things together. You know, and
Collaboration.
yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's and when you say it like that, it's just like commitment, collaboration. Seems so simple. It just really does. But and you made a really good point, like you said, is if you've been with somebody long enough, you'll eventually kind of fall out of love with them. But you got to learn to fall back in love with them. And if you're always going, your focus or habit, for want of a better term, is collaboration and commitment. That's an easier process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd also add that these are not necessarily qualities that are inherent in a person. They're not qualities that if you're on the dating apps or this you're looking for. There you might see some loyalty pieces. That's what I've seen in Peter.
Yeah,
But the collaboration and commitment are almost like learned behaviors, like eating right or exercising well. It's
yeah,
not necessarily something that you're gonna find. So if you're out there and you are meeting somebody, the important thing to do is to talk about how are we going to work things out? How are we going to stay together?
yeah,
What, right? What happens if we fall out? What happens if we fall out of love with each other? What happens if I had this conversation with Peter last week. What happens if I was paralyzed and I couldn't, I was bound in a wheelchair? Would you leave me? And we're only in the early stages of our relationship. And these are important conversations because it sets the stage for where you're going and what you're doing.
yeah. And I
We don't
think
do that. We can
no,
talk about that.
and that's because the other thing that kind of came to a conclusion is they were best friends. And we talk in this world today where people shouldn't be best friends with their spouses. Do you know what I mean? And you just like, well, how does that work? If you can't, I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have your own social circles, but
Right.
it's the nobody, generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, nobody tries to get one over or take advantage of their best friend.
Yeah.
So why would we do the same with the person we say, oh, do you know what? We should get married? Because then we're legally binded. So when I take advantage of you and make decisions that aren't in your best interest, you're fucked.
Right. 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 Right.
We don't do that. You know, your best friend. So here's the thing. It's like this guy was one of my best friends. You know, certainly my best friend at college, and I haven't heard from him. For various reasons. But as soon as his wife reached out, it was just like probably 6 or 7 weeks, and I'm at his house. Right?
Right.
I know men that wouldn't do that for their wife. This wouldn't even agree to go out for dinner. Do you know what I mean? But if their best mate had a problem at 4 o'clock in the morning, they're getting up out of bed and going to pick them up from 2 hours away. It's just like,
Right.
and vice versa. Wives, husbands do it to each other. Do you know what I mean? It's not exclusive to gender or sex or anything like that. It's an attitude.
It's this attitude of
Yeah,
me, and my needs versus your needs. And I get to put out my needs. So then you talk about your needs and then we try to compromise. And that's not collaboration. That's not commitment. That you said it so great when you said they have each other's back,
yeah.
right?
And there's something really secure when you look at somebody and you know they have your back. There's something about that person that I'm going to tell a funny story, but I promise you there is relevance to it. I've owned dogs all my life, and uh, about 10 years ago, he sadly was put down. But we had this brown collie called Toby, and Toby was a
Hmm.
rescue dog. And like anybody that knows collie sheepdogs, they're half on this planet and half somewhere else. But they're very kind of family orientated, and but sometimes you wonder what planet they're on, because he'd get distracted by a butterfly, And one day, and Toby wasn't a barker, a growler, or anything like that. One day, my niece is here in the garden, and she must have only been about 5 or 6 years old. She's out playing with Toby in the garden. It's not unusual. Anyone that has a collie dog knows what they're like. You know what I mean? They're constantly trying to round up the little ones. And the next thing is, I hear this barking. Right, and me and my brother had never heard the dog bark. We're outside, and there's a delivery man trying to deliver a parcel. And all he does, nobody's answered the door. I don't know why I didn't hear it. He notices my niece in the garden, and he just finds, hey, it's nothing suspicious. He's just, hey, a
Huh?
parcel. Is there an adult in the house I can give the parcel to? The dog is like a rabid wolf, and even though there's a 6 foot iron gate between him and the dog, he is frozen solid. Like, my God, this dog is going to kill me. And I swear it was like some demonic dog snarling. And even I was like, oh, Jesus, I've never seen that in a dog before.
Right.
And and my niece is just patting him, saying, playing with Toby. Toby and me are playing. And all the adults are like, okay, everyone, don't anybody move quickly because the dog is not messing about. And although I loved the dog, and I've always loved the dog, from that moment, the way I saw how he put himself between my niece and the innocent delivery guy, and there was no joking, he was ready to kill that bloke. I, it broke my heart when he went, but for all the other reasons other than fuck that dog was put his life on the line for you. And we've had everything as kids: Dobermans, Rottweilers, German Shepherds,
Mhm.
and I'm sure they would have done the same. But the one that got tested, oh man,
Had your niece's back.
jeez, and I mean like I've never recovered from seeing it. Like wow, that level of commitment. Man. And and that's the thing is you get that feeling when you see it in friends, in lovers, in partners. There's just yeah, that person will put themselves in front of a bullet for me, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's it sinks deeply, and it never leaves you.
Right. Right. And I'd add the in its purest sense, when you like that dog, that when your niece, that dog had your niece's back, period.
Yeah.
Period. It wasn't, and this is what people do. I have your back as long as,
Yes.
as long as
Yeah. Here's the
you
caveat.
do this, right? As long as you do this for me, I have your back. Well, you know what? That is not fucking having somebody's back.
No, it's not.
No,
It's not.
you got their back. You've got their back.
Yeah.
You want to hear a emotional story?
Yes, please.
Um, and so just bear with me. I'll tell you, this is this. So that the phrase, I have your back was a phrase that Brian and I used all the time with each other. Um, so when I started my coaching practice in 2006, I was vacillating on what to do. And he's like, just do it. We'll get through this, whatever it is. If you're worried about money or this, we'll make ends meet. And then it flipped 5 years later, he wanted to start a restaurant and he couldn't get any money. It was 2010 and it was the big recession. Things weren't going well in the economy and he couldn't get a loan. And I took all the money out of my retirement account, every single penny. And I was like, it's yours.
Hmm.
It's yours. We'll cash in everything. We got so behind on stuff. I was counting pennies to buy gasoline to put in the car. Um, and he's like, why would you do this? And I'm like, why wouldn't I do this? Because I have your back. And I said to him, I said, I would rather live in a cardboard box on the side of the river, knowing that you followed your dream and failed,
Yeah.
than live in a nice house and never let you have your dream.
Hmm.
And the ultimate test of this happened when he died, because It was a series of events. I was away on a meditation course for 10 days, and I knew something was up. And on the way back, I found out that he had died in an automobile accident. And he was actually burned alive in the automobile accident. I'm an EMT and a firefighter. And we're in rural Vermont. Where it takes a long time for things to happen because it's so rural. And so, because it was an automobile fire, uh, the investigating person was coming from like 5 hours away on the other side of the state to just check and make sure there was no monkey business that had happened. Um, and so I knew where he was killed, and it was right on the way home. And so I called. I didn't know that he had been burned alive, and I called and I said to the people that were the firefighters that were there and the state police that were there that I wanted to come by and I wanted to come on the scene. And they were like, no, you really shouldn't come on the scene. It's really a bad scene. And I said, I'm a big boy. I'm, in my 50s. I'm a firefighter. I've seen bad things. And the person's like, no, you haven't seen bad things when it's your own
Yeah.
family. And I had a friend with me that was coming home to spend a couple of days with me. And I said, I need to get on there because this might be the last time I ever see him. They're going to take him, autopsy, and I'm going to get ashes back. Um, and so I had a reddish fire looking truck, looked like a fire truck, big red here in America. And I got up to the scene and they were still there. I couldn't believe that they were still there at the time. I understand now why they were still there because they were waiting. But I'm so grateful to where I live and the police that were investigating because they let me on the scene. Um, and My friend was like, "You don't go, don't go, don't. This selfish me. She was like, don't do it. You're gonna be haunted by that. And I am. I wake up sometimes in a cold sweat at night
Hmm.
with these images that are seared in my brain. She's like, don't do it. Don't do it. And I said, I have to do it. I have to do it. Um, and so we got to the scene and it was all white, cordoned off. He had a green car. The car was totally destroyed from the flames of the fire. The windows were gone.
Yeah.
The tires were gone. The car was just a pale ashen gray. Everything on the inside of the car, everything was gone. It was just a shell. Um, and I got on the scene and I was trying to be really strong because I didn't want them to be like, no, you can't go and see him. And I said to him, I said, I can help you understand what happened from what I know about him and what had happened. And they allow me to go past the scene and they let me go. And actually they had his body was covered with a big yellow tarp and they pulled the tarp off of him and I could see he had somehow crawled out of the car and then turned around and was facing the car from the passenger side, kind of with his hand outstretched like this, like he was kind of coming on his stomach. I knew it was him right away because we were together for 31 years. I could see the back of his neck, and I said to the EMT person, I have to touch him and say goodbye. And he said, you can't do that. This is an active crime investigation right now. I said, I don't care. I need to do this. And they didn't stop me. I'm so grateful for that. And I walked up and I put my hand on his shoulders. I told him I loved him. And People have asked me afterwards, like, why would you do that? Because if you have somebody's back, you have somebody's back,
Absolutely.
period.
100%.
It's not, I have your back, if only this, or I have your back, if only that. It's, I have your back. And um, the piece that I had left from him, um, he had a clattering that I gave him on our 10th anniversary. Um, and he was a smaller guy than me. And I just saved that they gave it back to me and saved it for me. And so now 5 years later, I met Peter, and I had the clattering resized. And it's now, this is my right hand. It's now on my right
Yeah.
hand,
Nice.
facing down as in dating again. Um, and so it's it's a it it's a reminder that he's still with me because he's always going to be with me,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I'm really grateful that Peter's like, yeah, I get this. And actually, we have a clattering that's waiting for him at some point to put on. Um, also, um, because I still have his back, even though he's gone 5 years later. As you can see, I
Yeah,
still have his back.
but that's is literally what is missing from so many relationships today. That I've had this theory that I speak about often, that if you go back a couple of generations, your parents, grandparents, life was hard. So
Oh,
one of the things that they understood before love, before anything else, if we get married, you better have my back. And it was just an understanding, because this world is tough enough as it is, without me having to come home and find out I can't rely on you. You know, and because it was difficult, and because people had hard times, like, you had food on the table and a roof over your head. We're doing well. We're ahead in life.
we're doing really well.
Yeah. And if you knew you had enough money for next week, uh, you were killing life. You were doing amazing. And you know, people lost children in childbirth. People lost children because of diseases. And, like, child mortality rates were really high. And because of those tough living conditions, there was two things. One, they had gratitude without even knowing they were grateful for something. They just like, do you know what? I'm alive today. My family is healthy. I'm blessed. But because it was tough, they didn't have social circles where they couldn't rely on people. You either have my back, or you don't need to be in my company. And it was that simple. And as life has got easier and easier and easier, and that we have so many things available to us without even trying, the one thing that we all need is just love somebody who had my back.
Right, right. And
And
the other piece that you said is gratitude.
yeah,
People had, a couple hundred years ago, people had gratitude. It was inherent in everything that they were doing because things were so tenuous.
yeah,
And now, you know, people have, iPhones and microwaves and laundry machines that wash their clothes for them and dryers that dry it. And now people have to read books on how to be grateful and work with coaches and therapists on becoming more grateful in their life because even though we have more things and it's easier, we've lost the gratitude
yeah.
that we had when things were harder.
And that's the thing, when things were difficult, right? And like, none of us are wishing for like hard times. When times were hard, you were grateful. You were just really grateful for simple things in life. It was just like, this is a luxury, this is a blessing. You've only got to go back 100 years, and people never had hot showers.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and you'd heat up water once a week for a bath or something, or a bath in front of the fireplace. It's really simple things, and that's what they were grateful for. If you didn't eat for the day, well, okay, well, that's life. Now
Right.
it's, well, you got to have 3 meals a day, otherwise you're not winning. And you're just like, no. There was there was no such thing as fast food. It was just food, and yeah, and you ate it.
Right.
Nobody had an allergy. Nobody nobody had an
No, no,
ideology.
no.
There was no ideology about what you ate. It's just like, is that food? Yeah, I'm hungry. Good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You were grateful for what you got.
Yeah,
It was built in because it was so hard. And now it's not. And you would think like logically, you'd have things easier, you'd have things better, you'd have things faster. That's going to bring more gratitude. But it's the exact opposite that has
yeah.
happened.
It's weird. It's really weird. And
Yeah.
it's
It's like you've gotten your wish to have all those things, and now suddenly you've forgotten because part of the thing that makes life so great is the struggle. And I say this to people about grief. We're just talking about grief. Grief is something, if you're grieving, you need to cherish that and not
mm,
try to fix it because that's a representation of the struggle. And if you're grieving, like with the dog or with your parents or with children, if you're grieving, that means you have lived your life well.
yeah,
That means you've lived your life deeply. Like the people you were just talking about 100 years ago, it's right there at the surface and you feel it. If you're not engaged in life, you don't give a
that's it.
shit about anything.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing with grief. When people talk to me about grief, it's just like, why do you think, if something matters to you so much, like this person mattered to you so much, so deeply, why would you be over it by next Tuesday? You know what I mean? It's the deeper you grieve is a direct reflection to the how deeply you loved.
Absolutely. So celebrate
Yeah,
your grief and don't try to fix it.
yeah. That's it. It's a cliche, but all cliches have a deep founded meaning to it. And when they say time heals, that's what they're telling you. Do you know what I mean? It will heal in time. But they're not saying next month. They're not saying in 2026. And and it's strange. Like I said, I find the grief, the way that people perceive grief and the actions they try to take for it is that every town generally has some memorial that recognizes the people that have lost their lives or whatever. We see rest in peace memorial benches, all of the ways we celebrate. So if you're grieving, why not put together a photo album so that when you're having a tough time, because when you're having a rough day, and not on your phone, actually go to the trouble of downloading some pictures or gathering up pictures and put them in their own album, you know, and have something like that, tangible, that you can hold in your hand. And it doesn't matter if you put it under the pillow and sleep on top of it. It's just your head lying against their head. That's sort of like as a metaphor. Or those times when you're feeling a bit cut up or a bit, you just open it up, and then either maybe have a cry about it or smile about it. Do you know what I mean? No, there's no rules. Just have something that you can turn to. Like you have the ring. It's something. I'm sure there's days when you realise you're fiddling with it and stuff like that, and you're like, oh yeah,
I was just fiddling with it now.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's that it's tangible. I can hold that. It's something that connects the two of us together, and always will.
Right. Right. That's the piece you just hit it when you said connects us together.
Mm.
And these pieces that we've talked about, love, commitment, grief, uh, gratitude. They're all things that connect us together. It
Yeah.
connects us with other people
Yep.
and it connects us with our soul.
Yeah.
And we miss that so much in this fast-paced life, in this Twitter, X, Facebook filled, whatever it is, next thing, here we
Yeah.
go, post, get this. We miss the connection.
Yeah.
And we need to get that connection because that's what life's about.
It is. It's exactly that. And yeah, it's yeah, it's funny. It is, isn't it? It's because I just realised how it's not easy, but it's really simple, isn't it? Just that's what life's about: is connections. Who we connect with and how we connect with. And
Right, right. Remember when at the beginning of this conversation, I emphasized that I had a great relationship with Brian. And then I was pointed in saying, but it wasn't easy.
yeah,
And you just said that again. It's simple. It is really
yeah,
simple.
doesn't
It's
make it easy.
just not easy.
Yeah, and
But the difficulties and the striving make it worth it.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And just being conscious of time, because we've been chatting for nearly an hour already.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and I haven't covered anywhere near what we were originally going to cover. So if I'll take the opportunity to ask if we can do this again in a couple of months, and
Absolutely.
and but before we go, and it's probably right now the most inappropriate question to ask. I always ask at the end of my podcast, so I'm just going to fly with it anyway. And it's a complete change of emotional tact. You know what I mean? A complete change of direction. Um, and
I'm
this
ready.
is
I am ready. Bring it on.
I just had to put it in there. So we've had like the most deep, sensitive conversation two guys can have with each other, and I'm going about to ask with the most random question you'll ever get. um, and and like I said, it's just it's a routine, it's a habit that I always try and ask at the end of every podcast because it's a curiosity thing. And so using your imagination, I want you to imagine go anywhere in time. Okay. Now the mode of transport for doing this is a car, right? So you go
Okay.
anywhere in history. What car are you taking? Where would you go? And what music would you be listening to on the radio?
I would get a Jeep,
Yep.
four-wheel drive, one that doesn't have the top, has
Yep.
the roll bars, but I could put the top up in case it
Yeah.
was raining. Um, and I would be listening to the Disco Biscuits.
Okay, nice.
You're like, what group is that? Maybe
Yeah.
it's
I heard disco and I
uh
was just in.
oh, that was in. Yeah, yeah. They're like a jam band, older guys. They've been around for ages. Really, really great concerts. And so I'd be listening to the Disco Biscuits. And that also feeds into, I just went to a concert about a month ago with Peter. And it was just spectacular. It was the best concert I've ever been to. But that's because I was with Peter.
Yeah.
And right. And where would I go? Um, I would drive around like the rim of the Grand Canyon or something like that, where you have this spectacular sense of beauty and kind of how small you are in the scope of
Yeah.
things. Because I think a lot of times we get wrapped up with, I'm the best, or I'm this, or I'm that. And really, we're just really small in the grand context of creation and everything around us. So there you go. Is that it? Jeep, Disco Biscuits, Grand Canyon.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. I look forward to being here again.
Yeah. As I said at the beginning, the conversation took care of itself. Right. Sometimes these conversations come out of nowhere. And it was a shame because I have to shoot. I have somewhere I have to go. But we are going to connect again and have another podcast together. And one of the things that he said at the beginning, that Greg said, is just the importance of saying to somebody, hey, how's the grief? How's the depression? If you think somebody is lonely or isolated, just send them a message, knock on their door. Don't leave because you feel awkward. Don't leave it. Don't not reach out. You will be amazed tenfold, 100-fold, how it can help that person if you just say, hey, and let people know that you're thinking about them. Nobody likes to be a burden. And often that's what they think they are. And deep down, they're not. So why don't you let somebody know that you have their back? Yeah, that's really important. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, the comments, the shares. It's genuinely appreciated. It's nice to know that people do have my back. And wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.